My name's David Cisco, and I'm a wildlife biologist with the Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources. And we're here today in the Snail Extinction Prevention Program's captive rearing laboratory in Kailua. Our team is focused on preserving native Hawaiian snails. So Hawaii had enormous radiation of land snails, over 750 species that existed nowhere else in the world. About 60% of those are already lost to extinction, and we have about another 100 species that will likely be extinct within the next 5 to 10 years without intervention. It's hard to describe to people how abundant the snails were historically. They were everywhere, from coastal strand, from Makai coastal strand all the way up to some of our highest Mauka forest reserves, and they're not there anymore. And they're small in size, but their sheer numbers gave them extreme power in the ecosystem. So they're our large tree snails, and many of our teeny tiny little tree snails are gleaning algae and fungus and bacteria that grow on plant surfaces. So they're cleaning our native plants, and all that food they're eating, they're pooping out, and that nutrients from their poop is going back into the forest. And so it's helping this nutrient cycle that needs to happen. Hawaii didn't have earthworms, and snails were one of the creatures in the forest that would help turn over nutrients. So I would say they have a really significant role in forest health, broadly. Yeah. Inside this laboratory, we refer to it as almost like an emergency room or a hospital for a species. So this is where they come when there's very few individuals left and they're going to go extinct, and we bring them back to life essentially. So we maintain them in captivity, we get their numbers up, and then we put them back out into the wild, into protected areas. So our land snails mostly now, the ones that are persisting, live in upper elevation habitats on Oahu in the Ko'olau Mountains and in the Waianae Mountains. And so sometimes those populations occur along hiking trails, and so the habitat is really sensitive. These snails are living on the trees and the plants that grow there, and so if you do encounter snails, it's really a good idea to look but don't touch, and don't trample around the habitat. Stay on marked trails, because for every snail that you see, there are likely 10 or 20 that you don't see and you won't see because they're hidden, and you could be trampling on them when you're walking around. Today, the main driver of extinction is introduced species. There's 3 of them. So rats, which never existed in Hawaii; Jackson's chameleons, which were brought here through the pet trade from Kenya, and they're now on all main Hawaiian islands. But the worst predator of all was brought in the 1950s, and it's called the rosy wolf snail, and it's a predatory snail that was brought here on purpose to eat giant African snails, which were also introduced and are a big crop pest. And on top of that, we have climate change, which is potentially allowing the rosy wolf snail into habitats where previously it maybe didn't do so well. And it's changing the weather patterns in these summit areas, and potentially causing areas that were once suitable habitat for snails to be too dry for them to exist now. So if you think you come across a native snail, it's best to look but don't touch. And if you're somewhere and you think maybe we don't know about it, we actually have a form on our website where you can go and you can upload a picture and say where you were, and you can let us know about it. And we've found lots of populations that are on the verge of blinking out from hikers or other natural resource folks that are working in areas that we might not be able to get to or isn't a target for our surveys. And we've been able to rescue populations that way. So if you do think you found something, don't touch it, take a photo of it, and go to our website and you can upload it and it'll come to us and we can take a look at it. And if it is something of interest, we'll reach back out to you and get more details about where you were.